Welcome back to the Crime Chronicles, where we peel back the glamour and dive into the grit. Today, we're not just telling a story, we're dissecting a legend. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, two names stitched into American folklore like bullet holes in a getaway car. But behind the romance and the rebellion lies a trail of blood, desperation, and myth making. This is the story of Bonnie and Clyde. Now, let's rewind the reel before the headlines, before the shootouts, and ask ourselves who were Bonnie and Clyde. Clyde Barrow was born in 1909 in Ellis County, Texas. Restless, and drawn to trouble. Bonnie Parker followed in 1910, a poet from Cement City, with dreams bigger than her zip code. They met in 1930. She was married, but she separated. He was already deep in the criminal underworld. Their chemistry instant. Their fate sealed. They weren't just lovers. They were partners in crime, literally. And when Clyde broke out of jail, Bonnie was right there, ready to ride or die. Now, what does this mean to fall in love with danger? I mean, if you like it, I love it. But I mean, I wouldn't be able to fall in love with somebody who's like a criminal or something. I don't know. Now they just did like a little parking ticket or got a little DUI, then then maybe I might fall in love with her. But if you a hard down criminal that done did time, no, I can't. Now, Bonnie's poetry, was it a cry for help or was it a manifesto? Now that kind of gets me right there. Like, I wonder was her poetry like, was she sending a message or something? And how did poverty shape their choices? Let's ask ourselves that. Now that we've met the duo, let's meet their crew and the chaos they unleashed. Between 1932 and 1934, Bonnie and Clyde tore through the central U.S. with the Barrow Gang. They robbed banks, gas stations, and stores. They killed at least 9 police officers and several civilians. But they weren't Robin Hoods. They were armed, dangerous, and unpredictable. The media painted them as glamorous rebels. Rebellions, rebels and rebellions. Photos of Bonnie with a cigar and Clyde with a shotgun fed the public's obsession. But behind the flashbulbs were fear. Law enforcement was closing in. Now, how did the media coverage glamorize violence? I don't understand that. I never understand why the media they glamorize violence. To me, it feels like you don't care about the victims or anything. It's like, okay, well, you know what? If the criminals look good, okay, let's get them on a platform because I see it all too much on social media. These people, they're always glamorizing over the falling all over the criminal. It was some criminal. They was people's in the comments like, "Oh my God, he looks so good. I let him do that to me." I'm like, you sound stupid. Like you actually sound stupid. Like, why would you romanticize a villain, criminal, villain, whatever? Like, that's a hard dying criminal. You up here romanticizing that? Like, seek help. Now, was the Barrow Gang a family or a ticking time bomb? I think it was a ticking time bomb because I feel like they knew that the police was going to close in on them soon. I feel like they knew that the police was closing in soon, but teach his own. And what does celebrity criminal really mean? Let's ask ourselves that because I feel like a lot of people they give these criminals like a celebrity title. But hey, to each his own though. But every spree has a shelf life. Let's dive into the final chapter, the ambush that ended it all. On May 23rd of 1934, in Benville Parish, Louisiana, a posse of officers set up an ambush. Bonnie and Clyde never saw it coming. Over 130 rounds were fired. Their bodies were riddled with bullets. The car, a Ford V8, became a coffin on wheels. They died as they lived, fast, reckless, and together. Was justice served, or was a spectacle created? I believe a spectacle was kind of created. I really feel like justice wasn't served because they didn't get no time in jail. I feel like when justice is served is when they get time in jail, like life in jail. I feel like that's when somebody it gets justice served. Now, justice can be served if they do get shot and killed, but sometimes I feel like justice needs to be served by them getting a life sentence or the death penalty. I feel like that's my that's how I feel about justice being served. Now, why did law enforcement choose to ambush over arrest? Now, I don't know. I feel like they probably knew that if they did an arrest, it really wasn't gonna do anything. I mean, that's how I feel. I feel like they knew that if they arrested them, they was good, you know, they was going to escape. So yeah. And how did their deaths fuel the legend? That's another question to ask ourselves. Now, legends didn't die with the body. Let's unpack the myth and what it says about us. So, what do we make of Bonnie and Clyde? Were they victims of poverty and circumstance, or were they cold-blooded killers who got what was coming? Their story has been romanticized in film, music, and pop culture. But the truth is messier. It's not about love and rebellion. It's not just about that. It's about desperation, violence, and the seductive power of myth. Now, why do we romanticize outlaws? That's a very good question that I always ask myself when I look on social media, and everybody always love to romanticize the criminals. Like, why do we romanticize them? But let me change that. Why do y'all romanticize them? Because if I see a criminal, I'm going to see a criminal. I'm not be like, oh, they look good. Oh yeah, they could do whatever they want to me. No, and I be looking at them like, really? So if the crime is that they raped a person, you in the comments talk about, oh, they could do whatever they want. Like, is you stupid? Like, what? That person raped someone, and you talking about they could do whatever they want. So you will want them to rape you. It's from what I'm hearing. Because from what I'm hearing, you don't care what they did. As long as they look good, you don't care. They need to be free because by your logic, they look good. They should not be behind bars. The person should not get justice. Because we all know some of y'all will romanticize the criminal and blame the victim. well, maybe if they didn't do this, but as soon as it happens to you, and somebody blames you, then now all of a sudden now it's, oh, don't blame me, blame the criminal. Like seriously, now you want to talk about blame the criminal, but before it was blame the victim. Now that you are the victim, now it's blame the criminal. Okay, what's the difference between legacy and propaganda? Child, at this point, I don't even think that their story is legacy. I feel like it's a well-known story, but as for like legacy, I wouldn't call it legacy. I probably would call it like propaganda because it's like, oh yeah, you have this type of love, or I'm a ride or die for you, and this, that, and the third. Like I could see, yeah, you be a ride or die, but at some point, if you if we doing too much dying and not enough riding, then, then at some point it gotta stop because look, I'm a ride or die for you. I'm a ride for you when you wrong. I'm a ride for you when you're right. But if we doing too much dying and not enough riding, we we gotta go. We gotta cut it. And how does this story reflect America's obsession with rebellion? Now, that's a very good question because America has too much obsession with rebellion. They have a high obsession with rebellion, and it's really sickening. It's really sad, to be honest. Now, Bonnie wasn't just a gun mo. She was a writer. In 1932, she penned a poem titled "The Story of Bonnie and Clyde." It wasn't just a verse; it was a manifesto, a confession, a prophecy, if you will. Someday they'll go down together. They'll burn them side by side. To few, it'll be grief. To the lot of relief. But it's the death for Bonnie and Clyde. Now that was the poem she wrote. Read it again. Someday they'll go down together. They'll bury them side by side. To few, it'll be grief. To the lot of relief. But it's death for Bonnie and Clyde. Now she knew how it would end, and she wrote it anyway. So what does this poem reveal about Bonnie's mindset? To me, it feels like she knew everything was going to come crashing down. I feel like she kind of had doubts that they was going to actually succeed in everything. So I feel like that's why she wrote it down like that. Now, some argue is it art or is it absolution? Well, hey, if you want to call it art, call it art because, baby, how you know y'all was gonna die? How you know? But I feel like it wasn't. I feel like on some part it was art, but then on another part it was like absolution. Like, yeah, I'm coming to terms with that. We're gonna die. It's not gonna end up good for us no more. But let's not forget the other voices, the victims, the families, the lawmen. Let's shift the lenses a little bit. Now, Frank Hammer, a former Texas Ranger, he was bought out of retirement to stop Bonnie and Clyde. He studied their patterns, tracked their movements, and set the trap. Now, he didn't want a trial, he wanted to end it. The ambush wasn't justice, it was an execution. But in the eyes of the law, it was necessary. Now, some argue that he was a hero, that others argue that he was a hitman. I feel like he was a hero because at this point, I don't think Bonnie and Clyde was ever going to stop, to be honest. I feel like they was going to keep on going and they was going to keep on killing. So I feel like he is a hero. Now, if you think he's a hitman, then this says a lot about you. Like, that does say a lot about you if you think he's a hitman. Now, what does this say about justice in the 1930s? Well, I wouldn't know because I wasn't alive back then. But justice in the 1930s, like, okay, I feel like it was justice wasn't there. Now, some have said, would this kind of law enforcement be tolerated today? No. Mm-mm. It wouldn't be tolerated today because you know why? Because the people, the public, the media, they'll scrutinize the people. They'll scrutinize the law enforcement. Just say there was another Bonnie and Clyde. They was going around killing and everything, stealing, killing all the stuff Bonnie and Clyde did, and they kept breaking out of jail. They kept doing this, they kept doing that, and the police found out there was no way to keep them in jail and no way to keep the public safe. I feel like that if it was today and they did what they did to Bonnie and Clyde back then, I feel like it wouldn't be tolerated. Because on one hand, you're going to have people say you shouldn't have did that. There's a different way to handle the situation. You should have brought them in and got justice for them. But then on the other hand, you're going to have people be like, "Oh, you did what you had to do. There was no way that they was actually going to stop. You did what you had to do." So, but y'all let me know, would this kind of law enforcement be tolerated today? Now, remember I said America has a obsession with outlaws? Yeah. I mean, why does America love its outlaws? Because they represent what we're afraid to say out loud. Sometimes breaking the rules feels like freedom. From the Wild West to the urban jungle, outlaws have always symbolized defiance. They range from poverty, bend the system, and rewrite their own fate. And we eat it up, books, movies, music, memes. We don't watch them, we become them. The outlaw as a folk hero. According to folklore scholars, outlaws have been often represented as higher law, defying corrupt systems to champion personal justice. And then, media myth making. Films like The Godfather and The Sopranos, it shows like The Sopranos, romanticize organized crime, painting gangsters as powerful, loyal, and emotional complex. The American dream flipped. Outlaws are often seen as those who succeed against all odds, even if it's illegal. They raise their raised mirrors. The dream. Yes, child. Did I right? Did I read this right? I did not. And I got my script right in front of me, and I did not read it correctly. See that what I get for not wearing my glasses. Their rise mirrors the dream. Huh? But with blood on the ladder. Child, I don't even know how I wrote that. Anyway, now the frontier roots, gun culture, and outlaw worship stem from frontier mythology, where survival meant bending the law. And like modern parallels, like today's outlaws might be rappers or hackers or influencers who challenge norms and build empires outside traditional systems. So when we're talking about Bonnie and Clyde, we're not just talking about two criminals. We're talking about America's love affair with rebellion. And this obsession is still alive. That obsession is still here. Now let's bring it on home. What does Bonnie and Clyde's story teach us about fame, fear, and the cost of infamy? Bonnie and Clyde didn't just rob banks, they robbed America of its innocence, then gave it a legend in return. This has been the Christian J Show, The Crime Chronicles. If you like this episode, share it, rate it, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and never stop questioning the story.